The film begins with the scene of a woman being undressed. She is lying on an operation table, a fresh stab wound in the middle part just beneath her breast. Someone cleans her with cotton wool. A female nurse wearing thick red lipstick pours a chemical onto cotton wool and passes it to a male doctor, who uses it to clean the corpse. She then wipes the doctor's face with a handkerchief. 3 other nurses gather at the table, looking suspiciously at the red-lipped nurse. The nurse smiles mischievously at the corpse. Another tears a black polyethylene bag, while an innocent-looking nurse gives the doctor a syringe, which he uses to inject the corpse in her right cheek. Dr. Tar goes aside to make a call, while the 4 nurses continue cleaning the corpse. He tells the person he called that he has a new body for him. The man on the call replies that he'll be ready to pick it up in 7 days, and the doctor agrees, saying he'll store it with the condition that the man gives him a deposit. They conclude that they'll meet in 7 days at the same time and place. This isn't their first transaction, and the doctor clearly makes money from deceased. While Dr. Tar is on the call, 2 other nurses are seen in a corner. One is stained with blood from her head downwards, while the other comforts her. There are 6 nurses in total at the scene. Just as a nurse is about to cover the corpse's face with a polyethylene bag, it suddenly opens its eyes, but it is covered anyway. 7 days later, one of the nurses is seen pouring ice cubes into a car trunk. The deceased body, wrapped in a black polyethylene bag, is in the car. A man touches her waist from behind. She smiles, closes the car's trunk, and turns around. A flashback is shown. The lady who is now the corpse struggles with the other nurses. She screams, threatening to reveal that they make money from deceased bodies if they don't let her go. She calls for the doctor, but he stays behind a window blind and passes a flat blade to one of the nurses. The nurses manage to place her on an operation table, and the nurse given the blade stabs the lady, causing her demise. A wall clock is seen ticking away, then blood splashes from inside the clock and fills it up to a quarter. It later leaks out, and in a flash the clock becomes white and stain-free. A couple converse. The woman tells her husband that practice makes perfect, and they dish their food. Dr. Tar leaves the party and goes outside to make a call at a phone booth. He looks left and right before dialing the number. It turns out he is calling the buyer of deceased bodies. The doctor asks the dealer why he hasn't come to pick up the goods despite it being 7 days already. The dealer answers that he isn't ready to pick it up, and that the doctor should know what to do to keep preserving the body until he is ready to pick it up, since he has already paid for it. The dealer then hangs up. Dr. Tar looks frustrated. I mean, who wouldn't be? He drops the phone, and just then, a picture slips out from his wallet. He picks it up. On the picture, a message, "Let's get married, love Tawan," is written. It is the picture of the lady that was assassinated. He recalls a time when Tawan wraps her hand around his neck, pecks his cheeks, and says that they should take a look at some wedding rings. They seem to be lovers planning a wedding. A nurse walks in, interrupting them. She is one of the nurses that later assassinates Tawan. In fact, she was the one who stabbed Tawan. Tawan walks up to the nurse and closes her jacket to cover her exposed cleavage, even though hers is also exposed. She introduces the nurse to Dr. Tar as her younger sister, whose name is Nook. Dr. Tar and Nook stare at each other, so Tawan tells her sister to go. She probably notices the attraction between her lover and her sister. As Tar is lost in thought, he receives a message from Nook. He smiles and walks away, forgetting the guilt he felt just a moment ago. Along the line, the sister and her lover have an affair, love each other intensely, and with the sister's jealousy in mind, she ends her own sister's life. Be afraid of who's not afraid of women. At a party, Dr. Tar is awarded Doctor of the Year, and he is given a bouquet on stage by Mr. Yo. 4 of the nurses are in a room in a Payatam hospital. The red-lipped nurse is applying makeup, and a nurse drops an envelope in front of her. She smiles as she sees her paycheck. She sees Nook in a corner peeping into a box where a wedding invitation card lies, and scares Nook by saying that if the spirit of the corpse sees what Nook is doing, it'll come for her. The other nurses turn on her, asking if she is crazy, but she looks unfazed. The nurse that dropped the paycheck spills cereal on the red-lipped nurse and laughs, so she reciprocates by throwing her to the floor. The nurse falls with a loud thud, and the other nurses come to help her up. The nurse who had been exercising in a corner walks up to the red-lipped nurse and slaps her, causing her lipstick to smear on her cheeks. She tries to stand up to protest but is into sitting by her. She seems to be their leader. If you had been wondering where the other 2 nurses were, they are on a bed romancing and taking snaps of each other. The red-lipped nurse tells them to stop as they are making her feel sick. The lesbians laugh at her because she is carrying a bag and 2 books on her head as a punishment. She walks away carefully and goes to the hallway so that the bag and books won't fall. She goes to a quiet place, sits down, and starts tearing pictures of a necklace, wristwatch, and earrings from a fashion magazine. She glues the necklace on her neck, the watch on her wrist, and the earrings on her ears. After all, if she can't afford the real thing, she can as well put on the paper version of the luxurious goods. A strange noise interrupts her. She looks in the direction of the noise and sees nothing. She feels a hand on her and still sees nothing. She is getting scared. I wonder why she hasn't cleaned the lipstick smear on her cheeks. She catwalks to a glass to examine herself. She holds the bag, which is supposed to be a punishment, in a fashionable manner. She poses in front of the mirror as though she is being photographed. She then sees the smear on her cheeks and expresses anger on her face. Just then, a dark hand caresses her face. She screams and struggles as the dark hand grabs her wrist. She falls to the ground and screams as she sees a dark figure crawling out of the bag. As she reaches for scissors, the figure disappears. She runs away, and Nook sees her and follows her. Thunder strikes and the red-lipped nurse screams loudly. The clock keeps ticking, completely unconcerned with the scenario. She holds a rail, and as she is about to run, her hand gets stuck to the rail. She struggles with it only for the rail to come off the wall, making her fall. Surely these non-living things are no help. She sees Tawan walking slowly towards her, and later changing into the evil dark figure that has been tormenting her. The other nurse is back in the room. The lesbians are playing, and the leader seems irritated, so she leaves. The nurse that was pushed earlier walks through the hallway, dancing, and hears moaning sounds coming from a room. She goes in, and sees the leader doing a tedious exercise. Probably not what you were expecting. The leader tells her to get out, and she goes grumpily. The leader is in her room doing yoga. She raises her leg in the air, looking so focused, and her leg hangs in the air. She struggles with it and is relieved. She probably thinks it is a cramp from too much exercise, as she doesn't pay much attention to what just happened. She goes to the bathroom to take a bath with her clothes on, washes her hair, then goes into a room, turns on a projector that projects a female body, with arms stretched sideways. She aligns her body with the projected image, and is disappointed when it doesn't fit perfectly. Now we know why she is so obsessed with exercise. She wants a perfect, slender, sexy body, which she hasn't achieved yet. She sits down, and starts lifting an arm weight. She breaks down, looking exhausted, and then a dark hand caresses her head. She looks relaxed, probably because she needed comfort. She feels the hand on her head again and freaks out, realizing she is the only one in the room. The weight floats in the air and tries to hit her. She dodges it and screams. Thunder strikes, and the standing fan in the room starts blowing very fast. An overgrowth of hair covers her mouth and ties her up. She sees the evil spirit briefly before her face is completely covered with hair. The nurse who was earlier thrown to the ground is in her room. She pulls off her gown, leaving her in lingerie, while dancing to music. She lies on the bed and eats a snack. She later puts on a singlet and shorts, takes 3 fresh tomatoes and table water from her refrigerator, squashes the tomatoes into a glass cup, adds egg white, and pours milk into it. She gulps the mixture and vomits into a plastic bag, weighing it and smiling satisfactorily. This is perhaps the secret to her slender figure. She picks up her cat and scolds it for eating too much. She enters her bathroom and starts brushing her teeth. She sees a half-eaten donut, eats it, then continues brushing her teeth. The dark image goes up to the ceiling behind her, and she sees it through the mirror in front of her. She turns and the image disappears. She turns back and the figure grabs her head, helping her to brush her teeth so hard that blood comes out. She struggles with the figure and falls to the floor. She stares at the figure for a while and runs away. She is seen running in the hallway and pushing open doors that restrict her. Then she hits a trolley of hospital supplies and falls with it. One of the supplies sticks to her leg, and she pulls it out effortlessly and limps. Dr. Tar is at a phone booth, calling the shady dealer, but the dealer doesn't pick up. He goes to a corner to smoke a cigarette, and recalls when his male lover lit his cigarette for him. He is seated in his car, the wipers clearing the rain to give a clear view. He remembers bathing with his male lover, and admiring the tattoo on his back. He goes out of the car holding an umbrella, opens the trunk, and pours ice into it. The deceased body is still there. Nook enters a toilet, pees on a pregnancy test stick, and confirms she is pregnant. She smiles and imagines herself in a wedding dress with a bulging stomach and Dr. Tar hugging her. Then, she cleans up and goes out. She sees the lesbians trapped on a table. They ask for her help, but she runs away when she sees the evil figure. She tries to call Dr. Tar and sees the red-lipped nurse running, so she follows her. She couldn't find her, so she goes into a room where they keep deceased bodies. A flashback is shown of Tawan going into that same room. She covers herself up and pretends to be a deceased body to surprise Dr. Tar. The doctor comes in and, seeing nobody, smiles and goes out. Nook comes into the room, and the doctor follows, caressing her. She protests that they shouldn't do it there, but he continues caressing her. He throws off a deceased body from one of the tables and places Nook on it. Tawan watches them get intimate and cries silently under the covers. Later, Tawan grabs Nook's hair when she is alone and confronts her. She slaps her hard and throws her to the ground. Nook reveals that she is carrying Tar's baby, and Tawan cries uncontrollably. 2 nurses grab Tawan and one goes to meet Nook on the floor. Dr. Tar comes in and hugs Nook. Tawan screams and cries, but no one comforts her. The doctor signals to the leader, and she drags Tawan away. In the room that Nook entered, she hears a female crying under a cover and opens it. Nook finds Tawan crying and is startled. Just then, Dr. Tar calls her. She picks up to tell him what she saw, but the evil figure controls her mouth, so she says she has a surprise for him and tells him to come quickly. He tells her to wait for him and ends the call. The lesbians are seen running in the hallway. They get separated, and one of the lesbians calls for the other, whose name is Emme. Emme calls her on the phone. As they talk, Emme realizes she is near the surveillance room. She goes in, checks the surveillance system, and sees where her lover is. Emme also sees that the evil figure is with her lover, so she tells her to look behind. The call gets disconnected, but Emme can still see her lover on the screen. She sees how the evil figure knocks her out, and also sees the other nurses struggling in one way or another. The evil figure is actively tormenting all the nurses at the same time. The leader is seen struggling with the hair wrapped around her. The hair is hanging her up, so she stretches her leg to reach for a chair to steady herself and not transcend into the afterlife by hanging. She pushes the hair aside to breathe because it is suffocating her. The evil figure releases her, and she falls to the ground. The evil figure isn't done with her yet, so it hangs her upside down with the hair and puts her in a fish tank. The leader struggles until she drowns. The evil figure, once Tawan, torments them without using any strength. It just waves, nods, and then it achieves its aim. The nurse who loves dancing is seen struggling with her own hand. Her hand carries the gallon on a water dispenser and makes her drink it. After a while, she is thrown into a room where the hospital stores deceased fetuses, tracheas, intestines, and so on in glass jars. She turns on the light and cries when she sees the evil figure. She quickly stands up and opens the door, but meets a brick wall. She bangs the wall, cries, and asks for help. She later gives up, sits on the floor, and continues crying. She sees all manner of small sharp objects on her palm. Her hand forces them into her mouth and makes her chew. She struggles on the floor until she gives up the ghost. Emme is still in the surveillance room watching everything. After witnessing such brutality, she calls her lover, and the call wakes her lover back to consciousness. She tries to pick the call, but it's impossible because the phone is in her cheek. The evil figure hits her on the metallic wall. She falls to the floor and vomits the smashed phone with blood. She stands up and walks weakly, but the evil figure follows her and puts her in a black coffin. Em sees herself on the screen and sees her lover in a coffin behind her. She turns and sees the evil figure. Nook is seen running. She sees a strange figure and hides herself. Fortunately for Nook, the strange thing is the red-lipped nurse. Her head is completely submerged in the fashion bag. Emmy's hand is being controlled. She picks up a saw and starts slicing her lover's lap. Nook opens the bag's zip and sees the red-lipped nurse. She gives Nook scissors, and Nook uses it to cut a thread in an attempt to free her from the bag, not knowing that the thread is joining her head to her neck. As Nook cuts the thread, blood flows out, and the nurse's head rolls off. Nook cries and runs away. She turns the door handle repeatedly, but the door doesn't open. She kicks the door open. She sees some nurses going down the stairs and tells them to wait for her, only to discover that they aren't nurses but headless females whose heads have been replaced with hair. They run towards her, touching her everywhere. There is no escape for her. A hand grabs her stomach and squeezes it. She takes a pregnancy strip and starts hitting the headless nurses. Emmy is shown slicing her lover's hand. Her lover appears lifeless. I mean, who wouldn't be? She was butchered, and there is no saving her. Emmy cries in anguish and tells the figure she is sorry. She calls the evil figure Tahuan, and the figure closes its eyes and stops controlling Emmy's hand. The saw falls off Emmy's hand and sees Nook fighting with the air. It seems only Nook has developed the power to see headless nurses. Shockingly, Emmy's lover wakes up and recalls aiding and placing Tawan on the operation table. Emmy cries that she doesn't want to assassinate Tawan, but her lover brushes her off roughly. Emmy falls to the ground, and her lover stabs Tawan with a syringe. Emmy's lover finally breathes her last, and the evil figure goes away. Emmy picks up the saw and slits her throat. She commits and meets her end right there with her lover. Dr. Tar is still driving. He sees a card in his car and picks it. He remembers playing cards with his male lover. The winner is to be granted a wish. The male lover wins and tells him that he wants them to get married. Tar says he has to marry a woman. He puts the card down and drives away. In the hospital, Nook walks through a heap of the corpses of the headless nurses she has assassinated. She sure is strong. She finds her way outside and sees shadows on the white bedsheets that are spread out. She panics and tries to run away, but the evil figure grabs her hair and throws her to the ground. She stands up and stations herself to fight, but the evil figure slaps her very hard 3 good times and starts kicking her stomach. Nook kneels, holds the evil figure's leg, and tells it to let her and the baby in her womb go. At the party, the people are singing a song in Thai. It means, "Have mercy on us." Nook pulls out something pointed and stabs the evil figure with it. Nook is shocked when she realizes that the pointed object is facing her stomach, and worse still, her own hand is holding the object. She screams and falls to the ground. Dr. Tar arrives at the hospital and adjusts his clothes. Fineboy doesn't know what's going on yet. Nook's hand stabs her repeatedly with the pointed object, and it stops when the clock ticks 12. The evil figure acts weak, as though affected. Nook seizes the opportunity and stabs the evil figure on the chest with the pointed object. She smiles, but her smile fades when she sees the evil figure stand upright, totally unhurt. The clock shows the number 13 before 1, signifying that the evil figure is given more time to exact revenge. The evil figure pulls out the object and laughs. She starts strangling Nook, and Nook does the same. The evil figure overpowers her and steps on her neck with its heels. The evil figure is fashionable after all. Dr. Tar is seen dragging Tawan's deceased body. He sits for a while and calls Nook. A sign falls from the hospital building and hits Nook. A flashback of Dr. Tar flirting with all the nurses is shown. He tells Emmy that he loves her so much. He gifts a fashion bag to the red-lipped nurse, touches the leader's waist, and tells her he would make her perfect. Dr. Tar walks in the hallway carrying Tawan's corpse, but he is bewildered when he sees Tawan in a wedding dress waiting for him. She walks toward him slowly, and blood rains on her as she walks. In the blood spatters, Tawan is seen thoroughly bandaged. She tells Tar to call her Tawan. She puts his hand on her and tells him to feel it. Tar looks away, disgusted, but Tawan tells him that he has to marry her now that she has become a woman. Tawan's face changes to the male lover's face, implying that Tar's male lover transformed himself into a woman just to get Tar to marry him. Tawan's back is shown, and the tattoo that Tar's lover has is there, confirming that his male lover and Tawan are the same person. Tawan hugs him, but he strangles her and tries to push her off, though he isn't strong enough. Nook is seen pouring fuel on Tawan's deceased body. She lights a matchstick, and a flashback of the sign hitting her is shown. Fortunately for her, the sign didn't hit her. It narrowly missed her head. She throws the matchstick on Tawan's corpse and burns her. She recalls stabbing Tawan and Tawan rubbing her with blood from her head to her stomach before her demise. Tar holds Nook, and they run down a staircase. While they are running, Nook suddenly falls on the stairs, screaming. As she groans, she births Tawan. Tawan turns into a man, which is her original form, and whispers marriage in Dr. Tar's ear.